I'd like to call to order the Oklahoma City Board of Adjustment meeting for January the 5th, 2012. Remind you to silence your cell phones if you have not already. Our first order of business is approval of the minutes of the December 1st, 2011 meeting.
So moved. Second.
Have a motion and a second. Please register your vote. Minutes are approved. Staff, any continuance requests today?
We have none today.
Any continuance or withdrawal requests from the public? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion from the board to move agenda item number 9 to the top of the agenda. This is the case that deals with the child care facility, and we have a large group of adults and children that are present today. So if I might hear a motion, please.
Move to approve. Second.
Register your vote. Please call for agenda item number 9.
Item number 9, case number 13497, application for special exception of Yesenia Santillan to allow the continued use of a child care center located at 5131 South Villa Avenue.
Please come forward and address your application. And give us your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Yesenia Santillan.
Would you put your microphone down?
My name is Yesenia Santillan.
And your address?
I'm sorry?
Your address?
5131 South Villa.
And if you would, go ahead and tell us about your application and what you're asking for today.
I'm asking that I was once here before trying to get granted for me to have a child care in a home, in a house. The reason why I did that is because I wanted to keep the home environment as close as we could to home for the children who are in our care. We've done very well. We became very attached to the kids. The parents are happy. I've had so many plans for the daycare that I'd like to continue to do that. It feels a lot different. It feels like the kids are coming to a family. They're not going to just a cold place. They're coming to a family. And I think that's wonderful for the kids that the parents have no choice but to work. And so I just like to request that you please will allow me to continue to do that so I can continue to improve myself for the benefit of the children.
That's right, because my notes indicate that on April the 2nd of 2009, we approved the variance for 1 year.
Yes.
Were you supposed to have come back after that 1 year?
Yes, but I didn't start working until a year after that. The construction and all that took a little while. So I came into the office personally, and I made them aware of that, so I was requested to come back.
Okay. And we do have a protest letter. Is there anybody else here to speak to this case today? Anybody to speak in protest to this case today? Any comments from other board members?
Is that person here that wrote the protest letter?
They are not. I called for that, and I don't see any indication that person is here.
Are you aware of any other objections from any of your neighbors?
No, sir. These are my parents, and they are my neighbors. And I myself live around the corner. I live on 52nd Street, and I lived there for 12 years. So I'm also part of the neighborhood. And so...
We also checked the records for code enforcement, and there have been no complaints over the past year.
How many in the audience are here in support of this application? Just raise your hand up. Okay. Is there anybody here that's not in support of the application? If I make a motion to approve this, could there be conditions attached? I really don't want to put a time limit on it, but if we, within, say, a year, have a couple of complaints that are legitimate complaints, then I think we need to look at it again. Could I use that as a condition?
The easier way would be for you to give it a 1-year approval and then review it at the end of the year, because
How about 2 years and review it at the end of 2 years?
you could do that or any number, 3.
Okay.
Or you could just do an approval and then let the complaint process handle any complaints that come forward.
Okay, I think that would be,
Just approve
yeah,
it?
I think that would be, and with that, I would make a motion to approve the application.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Register your vote. You are approved.
Thank you very much.
Item number 1, case number 13494, request for use variance of Newfield Exploration Mid-Continent for permit to drill an oil gas well located at 14717 Southwest 59th Street.
Is the applicant here for case number 1? If you would, come forward to the microphone. Give us your name and address for the record.
Yes, sir. My name is Coy Reed. My address is 4701 Northwest 158th in Edmond, Oklahoma. And I work for Turner Oil and Gas Properties, and we represent Newfield Exploration.
Okay.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Please register your vote. You are approved.
Thank you, sir.
Item number 2, case number 13489, request of Brenda K. Solomon for a variance to the minimum lot width and minimum lot size and/or to permit 2 dwellings on 1 lot located at 14708 South May Avenue.
I'm Brenda K. Solomon at 14708 South May Avenue, requesting for my daughter and son-in-law to build a house on the 5 acres.
And you're aware that the zoning ordinance allows 1 house for 5 acres. I wasn't clear in looking at the documentation for this. What is the overall lot size of the lot on which the 1 house is placed right now?
Mine
Yes.
built the 5 acres.
It is 5 acres.
Yes.
And the hardship is the desire to have your daughter and son-in-law live close to you, and I assume to look after you and to help with maintenance of the property and so forth and
Right.
so on.
Right.
So you're requesting a 1 acre tract out of the 5 acres?
Yes.
Just while Rod is getting settled and acquainted, we're in case 2, is that typically, I think when we make an exception like this, it's often related to a health issue. It's documented, by a doctor's letter to us indicating that the person, needs that assistance close by, rather than just the convenience of having family close by when there's no imminent need. And in fairness to the people who buy in these areas and buy a 5-acre tract, and with the understanding that, that that's the way it's going to be, that there's going to be 1 residence on a 5-acre tract, and then to see, variance requests come in and, the density increase, it's, I think, there's a part of it that's unfair, and, it begins to affect their quality of life and their property values. So, we understand, I think, your desire to have your family close to you, and that it is 5 acres, and that there's certainly room for another home on that land. But I'm not sure that there's justification for that in this case.
But right to the south of me, the neighbors, there's 2 houses.
Are the 2 tracts to the, and I think it would be to the east of you, are they 1 acre tracts?
I'm not for sure.
You're not for sure?
Those are to the south.
Okay, to the south then. I couldn't tell from the map, so.
Oh, to the south.
Okay.
The 2 houses,
So they are 1 acre tracts? So we wouldn't really be doing something out of,
Well, we recognize that, but those 2 are basically the only 2 1-acre tracts
in that
in
whole
that immediate
subdivision?
area. Once you get just north off the map, though, there's a regular urban
Subdivision.
subdivision.
Are there other 5-acre tracts adjacent to your property, or, between the regular neighborhood to the north and then these 3 houses to the south? Are there other 5-acre tracts in there?
that are, I don't
Yeah,
understand.
There's several, starting with her property
That
as you
have
run
5
north
acres?
to the neighborhood.
And those folks would have all been notified of this hearing, and we did not get a protest letter?
Well, we hear the argument quite a bit that something else exists in the area, but that doesn't necessarily set a precedent that everything else has to go that way, So the fact that something exists at a time doesn't mean, we have to look at the whole big picture and say, is this appropriate based on, what are the statutory standards that we're addressing here, And if there's not a medical hardship, and there's nothing peculiar about this site that would split this site versus another site, then we don't really have an argument as to why this is a valid application, as opposed to going through a plating process or rezoning or whatever. Because we're not in the job of plating the subdivision here. That's not what we're for. That's what the planning commission's for.
So because my neighbor has two houses, there's no,
If this was a 2.5 acre tract, would that go to the planning commission just as a regular lot split?
It would have to be rezoned to allow that smaller lot size.
Okay, but it wouldn't come back to us, it'd go to the planning commission at that point, right?
Right.
I don't know, that would be an approval, but I've got a problem with the 1 acre tract, and I'm not saying that I would be willing to do the 2.5 acre tract, but I think that would be more acceptable to me than the 1 acre tract. So, that might be a consideration.
Are there other hardships beyond just, wanting your son or your daughter and son-in-law to be near you that you think we should take into consideration?
well, just with hell around the house, with me being a single parent. Yeah. And I'm not getting any younger.
And it may be, I don't know how large your home is, but at some point, and some homes are set up, for separate living quarters, and, the parents and the daughter and the son-in-law may be able to live, for a period of time in the same house, and that would, bring them closer and allow them to offer you any assistance you needed in upkeep and, if there were health issues in the future. But it is hard to set the precedent or to use the fact that, the properties south of you are on 1 acre lots to justify taking a 5 acre lot that is zoned and allows one structure on that 5 acre lot, and to justify allowing another house to be placed there.
But was that acreage a 5 acre zone when they did the 2 houses on it?
Well, I think that's what Mr. Allen is saying. He's saying, if they did a lot split and the parcels were 2.5, but that still would require rezoning.
Yeah, and it would still have to come to the Planning Commission, and there's no guarantee that that's going to come about. But I think it would be a lot better situation than you've got here, because I don't see a hardship here. And, so therefore, you're not really meeting the requirements, I don't think. And I have a problem with the 1 acre, especially if there's no medical reason or something like that. And with that, I'll make a motion to deny the application.
So is
Second.
We have a motion and a second to deny the application. Register your vote. You are denied.
Third.
Item number 3, case number 13490, request of Oklahoma City Public Schools for a variance to the number of parking spaces, front yard fencing requirements, and fencing in the site triangle located at 2717 South Robinson Avenue.
Your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Ted Pinella. I'm with GSB Incorporated. We're at 1140 Northwest 63rd Street here in Oklahoma City. The items that are listed, the first one concerning the parking is not something that's being requested for variance. That's not an issue with the plan review department. What we are requesting concerns on the north side. If you look at a site plan there is an existing drop-off drive that we are replacing the paving and extending so that we can move the bus loading and unloading from on Robinson to off of Southwest 26th Street. First item that we're requesting is the paving for that drive is on the right-of-way. We need a variance for that, to allow for that. And then also the second item concerns the turning radius at the drive entrances are less than the minimum 10-foot requirements by the city. Because of the tightness of the existing building to Southwest 26th Street, there's not enough room for the required minimum 10 feet and still be able to maintain a drive capable of handling buses turning in and pulling out. The third item, it concerns the fencing around the playground at the corner of Harvey and Southwest 27th. Excuse me. What we're doing as part of the remodeling of the school is we're replacing the existing fencing, which runs in the right-of-way currently, right next to the existing sidewalk that runs along the streets. We are requesting that we be allowed to replace that existing fencing with new fencing in the same location. And also, we are requesting that the site triangle requirement at the intersection of Harvey and Southwest 27th, we granted a variance to allow us to run that 25 feet from the sidewalk instead of at the property line. And this is in order to maximize the amount of playground area for the school. As part of the remodel, as you can see on the site plan, we are making the school handicap accessible by taking about half of the existing playground and putting a parking lot for visitors and teachers and creating a parent drop-off drive so that the parents are not blocking the streets as they currently do when they drop off students. So,
If I can, excuse you for just a moment. Ms. McAllister, are you present? We've got a woman that has asked to speak to this application. Okay. Please give us your name and address, please, for the record.
My name is Ella McAllister. I live at 2801 South Harvey, and we have the house on the corner, the two houses, and they like Newsom, and we have been trying to get them fixed and trying to get the city or somebody to help us because we don't have no finance means to get it. I am disability, and my husband is disabled, and we are just trying to figure out how to way to get our house fixed on that corner, because it is a nuisance, because of the way it looks. And we've been trying and trying to get it fixed. And I know when the school get remodeled, we will be an eyesore to the school, new school. And all I want to know is, how do I go back getting my house remodeled?
Ms. McAllister, this issue that you have is unrelated to the application that we have in front of us, but staff indicates that they've got some resources that could be of help to you, and so if you would just wait until the meeting is over and then come back and visit one of the staff members, we will get you some assistance.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I've got a question on the site distance triangle. We're encroaching 4 foot into that site distance triangle. If that was a 4-foot fence, would that be acceptable? Or would they still need a variance?
They still need a variance regardless.
Regardless?
Right.
And that is a safety issue?
Well, they are going to clip the corner, but not just not far enough back to completely get out of the site triangle. I think what forces that site triangle at this location to be so large is there's extremely wide right-of-way on both of those streets. One's 100 feet and the other one's 80. So it forces that site triangle way inside the property.
Okay, would that be, are you telling me that that would not be a safety issue if we did that?
Just from looking at it on the site plan, it doesn't appear that it would create a, which one? It would be in the line of sight. The fence is still back behind the sidewalk.
Okay.
It's there.
Which corner is that?
The corner
27th?
of Southwest 27th and South Harvey.
So it's the southwest corner of the.
Oh, at the intersection, it's the northeast corner of the intersection.
Yeah.
It's the southwest corner of the school property. And looking back over the notes, the part of the fence request for a variance on the fencing is that the fencing be allowed to be 6 foot instead of the required 4 feet. Again, the existing fence is 6 feet and is a safety issue for the school. Obviously, the district will want a high fence as possible, which is typically 6-foot fence around their playgrounds.
I don't see how that'd be a side issue at that not at that particular place there. You know.
And the fence is chain link, so it is,
Yeah.
you can see through it relatively.
And I'm there. We have a Whiz Kids deal down here for a lot of the kids in the school, so I'm here about this time. And it's bad. The traffic's bad.
Yeah, and
get the parents off the street. It's going to be good.
when we were working on the drawings, and we would go down there to check out, look at the existing building. The school, before this current school year, Capitol Hill had over 1,000 students in that building. And when parents would come to pick up, they would literally, 26th Street would turn into a parking lot. Actually, 26th and 27th would turn into a parking lot. They would simply park in the street, either wait for their child to come out, or go in and bring their child out. So you'd have a big traffic problem. And so part of what the project does is creates that drop-off loop to try and get them to go through in that drive and then go down Harvey and then back down 27th and try and keep the streets clear. But that's not directly related to why we're here, but just a brief, quick explanation of what's going on.
I move approval. Any comment? Do you have comments?
Did you get a second? Second.
We need a second, okay. We have a motion and a second. Please register your vote. You are approved.
Thank you.
Item number 4, case number 13491, request of Oklahoma City Public Schools for a variance to permit the use of metal siding on a temporary classroom building located at 2601 South Villa Avenue.
Thank you, Board, for allowing us to be here. I'm Bob Howard, Howard & Associate Architects. I represent the school district today. This is not uncommon to a request they make to have a building portables temporary with metal siding. What we plan to do is renovate the facility there. It's Jackson School. It'll become Columbus at Jackson School. What we'd like to do is go ahead and use the portables for about a 2-year period in which we can go ahead and renovate the existing building. There is no new addition that we could move into or phase into, so it seemed a better opportunity to bring the portables on, go ahead and do the work, and at that time that we're complete, we'll not only take off our portables, we'll take off the existing metal portables that are on site.
On our unfavorable consideration, we'd like to add the option there to, right now we're talking about removing the buildings from over the sewer line. We'd like to add the option to abandon that sewer line as well. He's been in conversation with utilities, and that's an
So it
option.
would either be to relocate the buildings away from the sewer line or to abandon
the
this-
line.
Okay.
So is that acceptable to you, Dale?
Yes, in fact, that is the direction what Mr. Chambliss is saying that we would like to do. If the district is in favor of it, we would like to abandon in place of moving them.
Okay.
Yes.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
And it would be subject to those restrictions, and it would extend to November 2013.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
We have a motion and a second. Register your vote. You are approved.
Thank you.
Item number 5, request, case number 13493, request of Oklahoma City Public Schools for a variance to permit the use of metal siding on a temporary classroom building located at 3233 Southwest 44th Street.
My name is Jack Joyner with JHBR Architects, 729 West Sheridan. My case is very similar to the previous case. They were asking for metal portable buildings to be placed on site. Ours will only be 12 to 14 months. Construction time is the only difference.
So it would be for no more than 14 months?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'll make a recommendation to approve with that 14-month
And I think we
time
can
limit.
put in the March 2013 date that's
Okay.
in the staff report.
That's fine.
We have a motion?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Register your vote. You are approved.
Thank you.
Item number 6, case number 13492, request of Scott and Sonia Young for a variance to the minimum lot size and/or to permit 2 dwellings on 1 lot located at 13413 Thompson Road.
Your name and address for the record,
Hi.
please.
Scott Young, 3013 Airy Drive, Edmond, Oklahoma 73013. My wife and I bought this actually 4.77 acre lot back in October, and we're just simply wanting to ask the board for a variance for 1 acre for a young couple that we actually go to church with that are looking to also build a house. And so I don't know if you have exactly where we're planning to build in front of you. Do you have that?
Yes, we do.
I have, and I also have some of these lots around where we're going to build. And if I may, with the lot sizes, I don't know if you have that, but if I may, I'd like to give that to you. We're really asking for something that obviously has kind of been done there several times, especially across the street, and then there's actually a 1 acre lot just on the north side of the back edge of our property, and so that's why we're here today.
Before we excuse you for a moment, would you address the letter of objection from the Butlers and also the document in your packet that addresses stormwater runoff?
Which one did you want me to address first?
The Butlers letter?
Trying to find that one. You have that one? Okay. The Butler's letter about the subject property being zoned AA agricultural for 30-plus years, and then and we realized that whenever we bought it, and we realized that whenever we were going to ask for this variance, that I mean, we knew when we bought the land what the rules were, but we also knew that there were several lots in that area that were even smaller than what we're asking for, and so that's why we went ahead and went through with that and went ahead with the application for the variance. The other letter that we received about water issues, that was the first I had ever heard about any water issues, and honestly, I don't know. Of course, I'm not an engineer, but I don't know what one house in that area, how that could drastically affect the flow of the water. So other than that, I don't really know how to address the water issue. Maybe it will. I can't imagine that it would affect the water flow that much, and maybe there's something we could do to help that. I don't know, but anyway, I don't know how to address that other than I don't know that would affect it drastically.
All right. Then may I excuse you for a moment and call Mr. Butler, please? Yes, sir. Your name and address, please.
My name's Charles Adams. I filed the rather long-winded response with the technical analysis on it. And there are water issues here. Picture, if you will, in your mind.
Speak into the microphone, please.
Picture, if you will, in your mind. This street is located in an area that is free of crime. It's an older development. It's been there 30, 40 years. This 5 acres or 4.77 acres that the applicant seeks a variance for has been zoned that way between 30 and 40 years as AA agricultural. When you look at that first overlay that you saw earlier, you will see AA property, and then the Butlers have AA property, and then if you go down to Coltrane Road, it's AA property. I live directly across from this 4.77 acres. And what it is on a hill, and that hill crests in the middle of this 4.77 acres and forms a dividing line for where the water will go. It will either go to the west, and if his house, we all knew somebody was going to build on that 5 acres. It was going to happen. We couldn't stop that. That's fine. That's great. We want them to do it. We just don't want them to build another house. And when they say, well, we're going to build a house that's in accordance with the size of the homes in there, the largest home in this immediate area on Thompson Road and on McRain's Road, the largest home is 2,100 square feet. The average home is between 16 and 2,000 square feet. Now, when you get down there on Coltrane Road, you run into the mega mansions. There's 2 of those down there. But by and large, they're asking for a 3,960 square foot house in the variance and a 75-foot driveway. Now, the drainage here, this property that he's talking about, on the far east side, there is a terrace in front of that fence, and it is there for a reason. That terrace collects the water that runs off this property on the east side, runs it down to a 14-inch culvert, and then it goes shooting down the hill. Because between Thompson Road and the houses below us, there's more than a 50 or 60-foot drop. And I had an engineer write this technical analysis. Now, getting back to my other thought, it's a quiet neighborhood. There's probably, on the whole, in just this street, I would say 7 or 8 homes. It's very quiet. I've managed to live there 22 years, and I'm the relative newcomer. Houses don't change much. When they do go up for sale, they sell very quickly. People take pride in their ownership. They watch over each other's properties, and they help each other out. A lot of the drainage problems that we're referring to in our technical analysis is there is a culvert on the west side of Thompson Road that catches the water off of this field, the east side of this field. A house of 3,960 square feet coupled with the 75-foot approach, it's going to be hard surface, is going to create a lot more water flow. And as the engineer said, that we're pretty much at our maximum. There is no retention ponds here. It runs straight downhill. The reason, if you look at this map up here, their proposed location, you will see my house, and there is 2 separate pieces. There's a garage that's separated from the house. It's directly, if you follow that dotted line and go this way, you'll see a house, and then you'll see a separate outbuilding. The reason those are separated is because the water, when it rains, runs between my house and that outbuilding, and then it runs on down to the neighbors who have built berms on their property to divert it to a more centralized location. The reason I have not asked for any type of, or attached my house to my garage, is because of the drainage issues, so that the water will drain off of there and not be retained, so it won't do any property damage. In the spring of last year, when we had these huge rains, the ditch that was on the west side of Thompson Road actually filled up and it started flowing over the road, to give you an idea. The 14-inch culvert couldn't do anything. It's located between me and my neighbor on the south side. Of all of the people located in this area, and we've identified some, 23 properties. 2 of those properties are new. 1 is vacant. 1 belongs to this teacher that deceased a couple years ago, and they looked for him. They couldn't find him. It's a wooded area. 15 of those 22 owners have signed the protest, the most recent being filed yesterday. Of that, only 18 were available to sign. If you drive in this area and you go down McRain Road, you can see on the west side where there's water problems as well. You can see where the city has dumped water on Mr. Swanson, and it has cut through his field and created down at the end of McRain's Road, a silt wash. Our main point is that they haven't shown the 4 requirements it takes to get a variance.
Understand.
I don't object to them building their home. I object to them building a second home and it creating even more runoff.
Well, thank you for your comments. Could, Mr. Butler, we hear your comments?
My name is Michael Butler. I live at 13321 Thompson Road, which is directly south of the property in question. And the fact that, as was mentioned, that the property is 4.77 acres is not relevant because all of that property around there was sold more or less 5 acres. So a little bit either way doesn't make any difference. You can't really say, well, it's not 5 acres anyway. The property that is split up into less than 1 acre properties was there as a Franhaven addition, which has nothing to do with the AA on the other side of the road. All of the property west of Thompson Road, it's all acreage, every bit of it. And as Mr. Adams said, that the water flow is a major problem. We had to berm along the front of our house, on the north side of our house, to prevent the water hitting the wall. And it gradually, I built it up, and we put flower beds in there to divert the water. And if you start messing with the water flow north of us, it's going to start again. We're going to have problems. It runs across my pastures now on the south side. It's pretty bad. And again, we're not opposed to one house on there. When we bought the 5 acres, we knew this would happen. We bought it better than 30 years ago when I retired from the Air Force. We knew that at some point, someone would put a house on that property, and we weren't concerned because we were aware of the fact that 5 acres, 1 house. And so we'd like to maintain that rural area around there. And when they started developing over on I-35, there was talk that there was going to be a green belt to stop development coming from the east and come from the west. And that is right where that property is. It's a rural area, and we like to keep it that way. 1 house we don't have any objection to.
All right. Thank you very much for your comments.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Young?
Well, just to correct the gentleman, we're not building a 3,900 square foot home. It's 2,550 roughly. I don't even know if that makes any difference.
You're talking about the residence, the one residence?
Yes,
Okay.
for one residence, yes.
I don't think the size of the house makes a difference. I do think that you're facing the same thing that the applicant that was in here a little earlier, is that we're not in the business here of subdividing property. You know, that's still the Planning Commission's job. This is all zone AA, and you have to meet the statutory requirements as to, you know, what's peculiar about this situation versus anybody else that's got a 5-acre piece anywhere in Oklahoma City. Really, you know, there are some things about a particular area that we look at, but you know, there's nothing peculiar about this site. You know, or you haven't talked about that at any rate. You know, if you want to talk about something further about what's peculiar about this area.
About our piece of property? Or about the whole
What's peculiar
area?
about this site versus any other piece that somebody might want to subdivide in this manner?
Well, I don't know of anything that makes it any more peculiar than any other than just looking around the area at the size of the lots in that area. That's the only thing we had to go by.
What's your hardship then?
There is none.
There is no hardship? Okay.
Have to move to deny the application.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to deny. Please register your vote. The request is denied, sir.
Item number 7, case number 13495, request of W.H. Brahms, Inc. for variance to the maximum sign height, landscaping requirement of the sign regulations, and to allow a sign located within the street right-of-way located at 3004 Northeast 63rd Street.
Good afternoon. My name is David Cheek, Cheek and Falcon. I'm here representing the applicant, W.H. Brahms. My address is 6301 Waterford Boulevard, Suite 320. We've really got 3 issues that we need to address, and I don't know if we need to address them separately or not, but let's start with sign 2. That is a sign. There's a current sign that's been there for a number of years. It is it's got 2 feet to it. We want to remove that sign and put in a 50-foot sign on a single pedestal. And it is the one. The current location of the sign when it was built originally was in full compliance with the regulations of the City of Oklahoma City. Since that time, the city has widened 63rd Street, and the existing location of the sign is in the current right-of-way only because of the widening of the street. We had built a parking lot there that's been there the same for many years. The sign that we intend to put up, we would like to put back into the same location, which means it will be in the right-of-way. We do understand that will require a revocable permit, and we'll have to remove it if the city ever needs to use the right-of-way. But the location of the sign, that sign is the first issue that we're seeking variance on. The second issue is because of the configuration of the existing parking lot, this sits in an island. The 10-foot radius for landscaping around the sign, there's not enough area there for us to meet the landscaping requirements with all the necessary points. We can get within 60% of it. We'd be glad to expand the landscaping area into other areas, but it'll be more than 10 feet from the pole. Or we'd like a variance to allow us, we'll put as much landscaping as we can in the existing area without tearing up the parking lot, but we'd like to use the existing island as it is currently configured. So that's our second variance. The third issue that is on the corner of this property, it's the northwest corner. There is an existing 50-foot sign. It's very similar to the one that's in front of you. We would like to replace it with a 70-foot sign. And the reason is that while this is the Brahms corporate headquarters, there is also a retail location there. It's being remodeled to bring it up to Brahms' most current standards. It's also designed to be somewhat of a training facility for new employees. And we are targeting advertising on Interstate 35. At this point, Interstate 35 is quite elevated. And for us to get adequate exposure, particularly to the northbound traffic, we would like to go to 70 feet. There are a couple of other signs in the area. There's one that's 1,100 feet north of us. It is only a 50-foot sign, but because of the elevation of the land, if you measure the top of the signs, it's actually a little higher than this 70-foot sign would be designed. We picked 70 feet because we took a crane out there and raised it to that level up and down and drove up and down the highway trying to figure out what the best visibility was and the least height we could get away with. 70 feet seems to be something that's functional for us and would give us adequate visibility on the highway. It is an industrial area. There will not be, we don't see that it will impact the surrounding area in any way. There are a couple of other signs along that highway that are within 5 feet of that 70 feet. They're less, I acknowledge that, and I provided that map. I didn't see it in the staff report, and I don't know if you've got it. I have one here if we need to put it up. But there are other signs in the area that are very close to the 70 feet, and they're certainly higher than the 50 feet that is the regulation. So our third variance request is a 70-foot sign. Now, we recognize the current sign, because of the widening of the road, is within the site triangle. So we're moving the sign out of the site triangle. We'll move it 20 feet south, and we've got plenty of room to do the landscaping within city regulations, and we're glad to meet those regulations. So we will actually correct that issue that currently exists with this new 70-foot sign.
How long have you been in that location? 35 years?
About 25 years.
Been longer than that.
Been a long time.
Would you admit that's not a good retail location?
Say again?
You have to have a helicopter to get to the drive-through.
Oh, I don't know.
Anyway, it's more of a local type retail deal for your store there, that kind of thing. So I think the reason for your 70-foot proposal is to advertise Brahms generally, as opposed to the drive-through.
Well,
The store
I mean, it goes both ways.
Yeah, you can hardly get there from there, I mean, it's pretty much a local location there. But would you be interested, or would you enhance the landscaping if the others were amenable to this, increase the landscaping on the corner of 63rd there, in essence, to expand on that a little bit in place of the other landscaping?
Yeah, we'd be glad to.
Because that's really, I mean, as far as an appearance deal, I mean, that's where you get most of your appearance anyway.
Right. And there's plenty of land.
Plenty of room there. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, we'd be glad to do that.
But I think it is a peculiar site because you sit so low there with relationships to the highway that I think that I think that's the peculiar nature of the deal, in my opinion.
It's hard for me to understand why that you need an additional 20 feet or 25 feet there, 20 feet.
20 feet.
And you've been there for 25-plus years, and that sign's been sufficient. I can taste Brahms. I don't have to see a sign or anything. I can taste it, okay? I really don't understand the need for that extra 20 feet when you've been exposed there for all these years. And, that's exceeding our sign ordinance by 20 feet. And I would not be in favor of doing that myself.
I understand there are some signs out there that are effectively the same height and one that's even higher.
I understand, and this is also, I don't know how those signs got there, but I do know that that's an appearance corridor, and, we are trying now to protect that in some respect, and signs are one of the problems in that site, or that appearance corridor. And like I say, I would not be in favor of raising that sign up to 70 foot.
I think we allowed for higher signs up in 122nd, didn't we?
Yeah, there's some high signs along there, no ifs, ands, and buts about it, because the Interstate 35 is elevated there. One of the reasons why they don't have a larger sign there now is because the sign would have been right in the flight pattern of the airplanes. Of course, they're
not doing that anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Rod's observation that, the store is known locally, and probably, most of the people that use the store regularly are people that live in the area. And the limited access off the highway, one of the justifications for the higher sign would be increased visibility from the highway for people that were traveling through and might not know that location existed, and it would be understandable that you would want to give them the opportunity to identify your store and to exit. But there's no real effective way to exit, I don't think, from I-35.
No, and I was acknowledging that, but I was also acknowledging that this is a corporate identity thing for them, and they do sit in a peculiar location with regards to what a lot of locations are along I-35. We've allowed this in those peculiar locations before, like 122nd Street, where there were visibility issues with regards to corporate identity or to accessibility and that kind of thing, to allow people a little bit more room if they were going to do that. So I don't think that this particular site can be put in the context of most sites along there, because it is peculiar in that regard.
And the topography of the land, the sign that's to the north of you, that's actually not 70 feet, but overall, it would put those signs, the overall height, the perception of the overall height of those signs, essentially on par. Am I correct?
That's correct.
So the perception wouldn't be that you had one sign appreciably higher than the other. It's the difference in land elevation that would allow the signs to be about the same height as perceived by the drivers going by.
That's correct.
So are you not asking for it to be over the right-of-way then?
This sign would not be in the right-of-way. The 70-foot sign It's currently in the right-of-way, but we're going to move it back 20 feet and take it out of the site triangle and off the right-of-way. So,
Is the other sign in the right-of-way then?
yeah, the number 2 sign, which is on 63rd Street, that's in the parking lot,
Oh, okay.
that one is in the right-of-way today.
And you have a
because of
revocable, revocable permit for that.
We've applied for it, and it's a condition on a variance, of course, but it otherwise has been approved for a revocable permit.
Do we need to take those issues separately, or?
You think you have different ideas about each item, you could take them up that way because they are listed that way, landscape requirement of the sign regulations and to allow sign. So you could break that into an A.
I'd like to make a motion on the whole application and tying some of those together for compromise purposes, so to speak. So I'd like to make make a motion to approve the application with the change that you would increase the landscaping at the corner of 63rd Street and the service road.
That would be fine. I would appreciate if your motion included how much we need to increase it so we know what.
Double.
Double?
Yeah.
You okay with that, Harris? How about half again?
No, we're not. Well, no, we're taking. That's in lieu of the. Or reducing the amount around the other sign because you said you're restricted in the landscape area that you can do on the other side.
Right.
Okay.
We're restricted to approximately 40% on the other one.
Okay. So put in that amount there and double the size on the corner, and maybe it's a little
Double
extra. that way.
63rd and get your 70 feet. Yes, we'll do that. We'll double the 63rd landscape on your motion.
That's my motion.
Hearing no second.
Time for new one.
I would make a motion to approve the landscaping, but I'm not going to make a motion to approve the 70-foot sign. And that, I would say the landscaping, I would make a motion to approve and to deny the 20-foot sign.
We will, because those are different items, have to vote those separately. So if your first motion is to approve the landscaping,
Yes,
we should have a vote on that first if there's a...
Are we talking about the landscaping on site 2, sign 2? Is that your motion, sir?
I think, Rod, wouldn't it yours that we increase it by 50% on the corner of Bryant and 63rd?
Well, that's the reason I was doing a motion on the whole thing, because I was allowing the 70-foot sign, but they were going to increase the landscaping as a whole on the site, further beautifying the corner.
Okay.
That was what I was trying to tie in together.
This is Harris Wilson with Brahms. Could he speak for a moment?
Sure.
My name's Harris Wilson. I'm staff engineer for Brahms, and I think one of the things that hasn't been mentioned on the size of the sign, the 70-foot sign, while we're asking for an additional 20 feet above the 50-foot that code allows, we're not, I think we have a smaller square footage that we're applying for also than what the code would allow to. So there's a bit of a trade-off there, if that makes any difference to your consideration.
It really doesn't. I've landed several aircrafts on that when that was an airport, okay? And it was kind of hairy when you come over the top of that building. But I still can't see with that building being there, your business being there all these years,
Don't get a second.
and the 50-foot sign being acceptable, why you need that extra 20 feet. It just doesn't make any sense to me. Plus the fact that we are trying to protect the site, lost my train of thought. The scenic part of I-35, and that to me, and this comes from the Planning Commission, okay? That's one of the things that we have really been sticky on is real tall signs. And, we see those as abusive, and, that's just one of the reasons why I can't see that extra 20 feet.
At this point, we've got a motion but no second, and so in essence, this has died, and one option you may have is to request a continuance and see if an acceptable compromise might be crafted before the next meeting, if you would like to choose that option.
Yes, so we would like to request a continuance.
Move continuance to the next meeting.
It should be January the 19th.
January 19th?
January the 19th.
Okay.
Is that acceptable?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to continue to January the 19th. Register your vote. We are continued to January the 19th.
Thank you.
Item number 8, case number 13496, request of Don Key for a variance to permit a detached accessory building located forward of the rear wall of the main structure, located at 9425 Southwest 29th Street.
Good afternoon. My name's Donald Key. The address is 9425 Southwest 29th, Oklahoma City. Our request is for a variance to put an accessory building in front of the back wall of my residence due to the topography, the elevation change, and the floodplain that the Oklahoma City has set the benchmark, along with, not Oklahoma City alone, but with SMC and the Corps engineers. So because of the way the land's laying, you can see, I think there's another item or another sketch that might show the pond with the, has some elevation lines on it. They're probably going to be difficult to read. But the building's basically for an accessory building. There's 1.5 acres there on this particular lot, and it would be the hardship would be for some equipment, for maintenance, and for upkeep of that property.
Do we have any issues with the construction of that accessory building, whether it's metal siding or whether it's, can you tell us, I mean, is it going to look like a garage or what? How do you...
It's metal siding. I work for a company called Alliance Steel, so that's what we do. It would be, it would have all the overhangs, the required roof pitches.
But it's an accessory building to a residence, am I correct?
That's correct, yes, sir.
Is the construction of the accessory building, JJ, any issue for us at all? Okay.
Are you aware of any known objections?
No, sir, none. I also have my builder who's actually building the house at this time and a neighbor with me, if you like.
Well, I can certainly see the peculiar nature of the site with the addition of the topography on there. So, move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Register your vote. You are approved.
Thank you.
Item number 10, case number 13498, request of Rupture Pintech for a variance to the required number of parking spaces located at 8230 Southwest 8th Street.
Oh, you did? Oh. Thanks.
Good afternoon. David Box, 522 Colcord Drive, here on behalf of the applicant. Also with me today is Eddie Loomis with Rupture Pin and Ron Costigan, who's the architect on the project. What we are requesting today is a variance to the parking requirement. This property, and as you're getting passed out the handout, if you'll turn to the first page after the front page, what you'll see is an aerial of this property. And the pictures of this property really tell the story as to why a variance is appropriate. Rupture Pin is in the valve manufacturing business and currently operating out of just over 16,000 square feet. What has necessitated this application is a proposed second building just over 19,000 square feet. Now, what makes this unique is that with that much square footage, typically a lot of parking would be needed. Rupture Pin has 28 employees, and that number isn't going to increase. Right now, they have 30 parking spaces, and when the new building gets built, they'll have an additional 2 that will open up when a temporary building is moved. So you have a large amount of square footage, but very few employees, and as the staff report notes, there are no retail sales. So you don't have members of the public coming to this site. All you have are the 28 employees, which their parking currently satisfies. And as I said, when the temporary building is removed, they're going to gain 2 more parking spaces that will have 4 extra parking spaces. So if you will, turn to page 2, and that is showing what the current parking is in front of their building. Page 2, 3, and 4, 5 all show the current parking. And as you turn to page 6, that shows the back of the building where the new building will be built. And then if you'll turn to page 8, this is really where this application is coming from. 8, 9, 10, 11 all show the inside of the building. As you can see, they are operating under close quarters. They have a whole lot of space, they have a whole lot of equipment and not enough space. So the new building will allow them to operate in a much more comfortable environment, allow them to clear the space, and allow a more comfortable and more efficient working environment without creating an additional need for parking. The remainder of the pictures, as you flip through, show the area surrounding Rupture Pin's office. And as you can see, this is an industrial park. It's all industrial users around. There are no retail stores. But more importantly, on this site, when we look at the 4 statutory conditions, this one is really appropriate for a variance. The hardship of requiring a company to create a massive amount of parking that isn't needed and won't be used is significant. And as I mentioned, this area is unique, and this site is unique in that you have a whole bunch of square footage, but only a few people accessing that square footage. And we're here to answer any questions, and we would seek your approval.
What's the total amount of square footage that you'll result in the space?
Currently have just over 16,000, and we're adding just over 19,000.
You're going to have 30, okay.
And like I said, with the additional square footage, they're not bringing in a whole bunch of new employees. They have 28 employees, and that's not changing. Just as you can see from the pictures, the workspace that they're operating in is no longer workable. It'll just allow for more efficient workspace.
Now, normally when we hear something like this, we say, well, it'll apply to this use only, you know. And you can't put the required parking spots on this site no matter what, if you build a building. There's not enough room.
Correct. And to the point of keeping with this use, my client is willing to agree to that.
Okay. Okay. But that's, usually we look at the site and say, well, you could put the spots there if you wanted to, you know, if you change the use or something. But in this case, you're defining what the site will look like.
Correct. And further, there is a floodway to the rear of this property, which further
Restricts
makes it
that.
right.
Okay. Make a motion to approve contingent, or what do you call it? Subject to this use.
Second. I have a motion and a second. Register your vote. You are approved.
Thank you.
Item number 11, case number 13486, request of David Moss for a variance to conversion of a non-conforming use to permit a duplex located at 1427, 1429 Northwest 38th Street.
Your name and address for the record, please.
Yes, my name is David Moss, 424 Northwest 6th Street in Oklahoma City. This property has been in my family since the 40s. It was originally built as a duplex. As you look at, if you have pictures of it, as you look at it, it still appears to be a duplex. For a period of time, my parents lived in it, and they used it as a single family, and it lost its status, I guess, is what. It has 2 front doors, 2 back doors, 2 side doors, has 2 kitchens. The structure currently has 7 bedrooms upstairs, 4 bathrooms, and 2 kitchens, 2 living rooms, and 2 dining rooms. It was used as a single family for a period of time. I am a real estate broker, a commercial real estate broker, and I tried to market this piece of property as a single family, but because of it has 2 front doors, 2 back doors, 2 side doors, 2 kitchens, and the center load-bearing wall cannot be removed. We didn't have any luck with it. My mother currently owns this piece of property. She's around 81 years old. I'm just trying to, as opposed to it sitting empty, because it's been empty for approximately 10 years after my father passed away, until she decided what she wanted to do with the property. I lived in it for about 6 months. I do currently have the right side of that, or the east side of it, currently rented to a tenant. I'm proposing I would like to get the address back that was taken away and put it back into its duplex status and rent the left side so it could be a marketable piece of property once again, although we're not looking to sell it probably at this point. I think some of the objections we had before were that it's been a single family and it would impact the neighborhood, and anything we do with it is going to impact the neighborhood because it's basically been sitting empty for 10 years. And we don't want to leave it empty because of the vandalism and everything else that goes along with empty structures. So we rented it to one side to a young lady who has 2 young kids. I would like to have the other side where I could rent it. Anybody that's going to rent a house with 7 bedrooms is going to impact anything if we leave it as it is, because it does have 7 bedrooms, and 4 bathrooms. But if we rented it as approximately 1,600 square foot units, it would probably impact the neighborhood less than somebody that's going to have 6 kids and everybody having a car sitting everywhere. On the right side, there is a driveway and a 2-car garage on the east side. On the west side of the property, there is a curb cut that was put in when the property was built originally. When I was a kid, there was a gravel driveway there, and there is a slab on the west side of the property where a garage used to stand. It no longer stands there. It's been taken down. But there is a curb cut on the left side for an additional driveway to be put in, that the city put in, I guess, in 1918 or something to that effect. But it was at one time a gravel driveway.
Could you tell me how the house has been modified inside when it was used as a duplex versus being used as a single-family residence?
Basically, they just cut 2 doors in. That's all that was done to it. Okay. But it's still, even though it was used as a single family, it's still, you had to climb up 2 stairs, go to a landing, go through a door, climb down 2 stairs, go through a landing and then climb down 2 stairs as it was used before. And then the back, you could go all the way through. The bathroom had a door cut in it so you could go from side to side. It was never really a marketable piece of property that anybody would want because of it has 2 kitchens, and you go through doorways to get to the other side, and both sides are mirror images of each other. So there's really no way of taking out that center, and we looked at taking out the center wall, but it's a load-bearing wall, and there's just no way.
That's not possible.
Right.
All right. May I excuse you for a moment and invite others who have requested to speak? Suzanne Broadbent.
Is there any other duplexes in that neighborhood that's function as duplexes?
Okay. Please.
Good afternoon. I'm Suzanne Broadbent. I live at 3625 North McKinley, which is just 2 blocks south and about a half a block west of this piece of property that's still in the Putnam Heights Historic Preservation District. I'm also an attorney, and I volunteered to write the letter for the neighborhood. You can probably tell an attorney wrote it. I'm the one who did. I'll be very brief today. Clearly, this board knows that there are 4 conditions that have to be met before a variance can be granted, and as I laid out in the letter, that a significant number, you noticed that too, I'm sure, number of neighbors signed, those conditions can't be met. I don't have to go through those 4, and I won't, but I would like for you to keep those in mind, of course. And it occurred to me that even though I stated in the letter that this house is a lovely single-family home, has functioned that way for a number of years, and I stated that it was comparable in size to many other houses in Putnam Heights, sometimes a picture's worth 1,000 words. So if I could, Mr. Chair, I brought my couple of neighborhood directories, and I've earmarked one that has several pictures, and then this one has my house on the front of it. So I'll just start. Along those lines, I would add that Mr. Moss stated that this would be 2 1,600 square foot units, which makes 3,200 square feet, of course, which is comparable to many houses and actually smaller than some in Putnam Heights that are single family. Property has been modified, as Mr. Moss testified, and it has been modified on the outside in terms of how the lot is configured. There's only one driveway, one garage, that sort of thing that makes it appropriate as a single-family home, and it is appropriate in Putnam Heights as a single-family home, given the size of other properties in the neighborhood and other lots. Putnam Heights is one of the historic preservation districts, as you know. We're pretty small, 103 houses, and it's a jewel in the center of Oklahoma City. It's been a partner with Oklahoma City in a number of ways that I laid out. Our lighting project. We feel like we're part of the downtown revitalization. It's a neighborhood where people want to raise their children, and really, all Mr. Moss has laid out that I can determine as a justification for this variance is he wants to, quote unquote, put it back to being a duplex. That's a bit misleading in my opinion. It has not been a duplex for several decades. Those of us who bought our homes in Putnam Heights, I'm celebrating my 19th year in Putnam Heights this January, bought it in reliance on this single-family zoning, and there are no other multifamily properties in Putnam Heights. As you know, variance is a serious deviation, and particularly allowing multifamily in a single-family neighborhood is particularly serious. And so we are just wanting the board to understand what Putnam Heights is. It's a very stable neighborhood. It's a beautiful neighborhood. It's one where people want to raise their children. We've had several young families move in. We all know what multifamily can do to the character of a neighborhood. Mr. Moss, you know, may make a good landlord. I don't know. The problem is, once it's multifamily, of course, it could be sold to someone who wouldn't be such a good neighbor, good landlord as well. The fact that he's tried to sell it and says he can't because it's of the way it's configured, well, in this market, there are any number of factors that can determine whether a house can be sold or not. And one of them, of course, is we've just simply been in a down market, even in Oklahoma City. So that does not constitute a hardship. This is a beautiful house that can be an appropriate single-family house, and that just does not constitute a hardship. Trying to be short here, I hope you've read everything. Of the four conditions, sometimes one of them is that substantial justice should be done. Well, the applicant and his mother did not buy this house as a duplex. They bought it in a single-family zone neighborhood. It had not been a duplex for many years. They did not buy it as a duplex. They did not build it as a duplex. The rest of us who live in Putnam Heights did buy our homes in a single-family neighborhood, and we thought it would stay that way. And we see no reason that the applicant has laid out that satisfies the four conditions, which are that it cannot be detrimental to the surrounding property, that there is a hardship, that it satisfies any peculiarities. This home clearly is not unusable as a single-family home, and it would not violate the spirit of the ordinance. Well, clearly, adding multifamily in single-family would violate the spirit of the single-family ordinance. So the substantial justice that needs to be done is for those of us who bought our homes in Putnam Heights relying on a zoning ordinance. And Oklahoma City needs these neighborhoods. We are part of the inner city development. We are stable. We have kids who are going to Oklahoma City public schools. Putnam Heights has never declined, and it won't, as long as we have cooperation with our neighbors and with city officials. And what we would ask is that you not start Putnam Heights on its road to decline today.
Thank you. I would like to invite Mr. Case. Please state your name and address for the record, please.
I'm John Case, and I live at 1440 Northwest 35th Street in the Putnam Heights neighborhood, and I'm the president of the Neighborhood Association. And I agree with Suzanne's estimate and her discussion on the house being brought to a duplex, because as a neighborhood, we on our letter, we have over 35, I think it's 34 or 35 names that agree that we oppose this being brought back to a duplex. And we understand it has been a single-family dwelling since on the insurance rolls since 1955. So that's over almost 5 decades of single-family dwelling. It's set up right now for a single-family house because it only has one driveway, has one garage, and we are concerned as a neighborhood of even though it does have 7 bedrooms, but we are still concerned with traffic being on the street or being in the yard. We understand that at one time he had his truck parked on the porch, so we don't appreciate that as a neighborhood. And as Suzanne said, it was purchased in 1998 according to the county records as a single-family dwelling, and we'd like to keep it that way. That's our main, as it is in a single-family zoned historic district also, and we would like to keep it a very.
How would you respond to Mr. Moss's, it appears to me that the family has struggled with, the disposition of this house. His mother is elderly and is not living there anymore. He lived there for a period of time. The house has been vacant, it appears.
Well, he had it up for sale for about 2 years. And my understanding, it needs, I don't know, I haven't been in the house, is some of the people that have visited, I guess, they said it needs a lot of work. And as in any community, if you sell a house, it all depends on the economic values of the home.
It does, but one of the things that would make this property peculiar is the fact that it was originally constructed as a duplex, and you have a load-bearing wall that apparently extends, north to south.
Well, I don't know about, this old house, they take out load-bearing walls all the time. All you got to do is put your proper beam at the top of it, and you open it up.
And I think, anytime you endeavor to do that, when it can be done, it is a major, major renovation. Yeah. And so, from his perspective, he's looking at a house, he's trying to figure out how to either, sell it or, do something other than just having the house sit vacant.
Yeah.
Now, from from your perspective, and Suzanne's perspective, and the neighborhood's perspective, you've gone to a lot of work, and I don't think any of us are not appreciative of your stewardship and your concern for your area and for the historic homes that you vacate. The dilemma that we've got is we've got a homeowner, and as a homeowner, he has the right to rent that house, whether he rents it as a duplex or whether he rents it as a single family.
Mm-hmm.
That's a given. And if he can find a family, a large family, that doesn't mind stepping over, through the load-bearing wall, and you've got 7 bedrooms, you can put a large family there. And so any issue about cars and parking and the number of people, to me, is really a moot issue because of that.
Well, I don't think it should be considered a moot issue because there's only one driveway right now.
But you don't necessarily add a driveway just because you put a family with 5 kids in it, in the house. You're going to have some street parking, and you're going to have more general activity around the house is the point that
But what's to stop somebody else from coming in for a variance to start an apartment house where they rent out to a bunch of kids or stuff? So
That's not the issue. And
I agree it's not the issue, but the issue is a single-family dwelling neighborhood that is going to be variance to where we have multiple family neighborhoods. Now, we have 2 other homes in the neighborhood that were at one time duplexes, and they are now considered, and the neighbors that live in them have them set up as single-family dwellings.
And I believe that's possible in this home. And, one option that you all may want to consider as a neighborhood association is to buy the house. And that way, you have control over that property then, and you all can make the decision about reconfiguring the house into a beautiful single-family home, and you can market it, and you retain control over the property, the stability, the historic, everything.
Well, the house is not on the market now.
It sounds to me like an offer might be entertained, because it sounds to me like this family is looking for a way out of a situation, where the house right now is not fully utilized, where it's been sitting vacant, and I think they're looking for a way to reconcile this.
Like I said, the house is on the market for almost 2 years, pretty close to it, and the value, as in homes that are on the market that long, the value usually is dropped. This house was never, the price was never dropped at all in an effort to sell the house that I could see.
And it may have been that the price was out of line. It may have been, the economic climate in which they were trying to sell. I don't know. Yeah. And to me, that's not really relevant either. The relevant issue is how do we reconcile the disposition of this and take into consideration, Putnam Heights. And again, we're very appreciative of the stewardship and the care that you have for your area. Suzanne, I think, would like to speak.
Well, as I point out to the board, addressing a peculiarity is only one of the conditions that has to be met. They all 4 have to be met. They are not optional, and the burden's on the plaintiff, or excuse me, the applicant, to do so. This house was bought by the applicant's mother, who still owns it. It's in trust. It's a living trust. Not as a duplex. It was not a duplex when she bought it, and she didn't treat it as a duplex. She lived in it. And actually, I would challenge that he can't rent it out as a duplex now because that's a non-conforming use, and it has not been used as a duplex in this single-family neighborhood in a long time. But then,
And my question to you would be, how do you know what the intent of the buyer was?
Well, she lived in it for a number of years, and it had not been a duplex, used as a duplex for a number of years. I'm assuming she knew that when she bought it, and as I understand it, under the law and the codes, it had lost its status as a duplex. The conforming status is single-family, and it has lost that non-conforming status, and that's why he has to ask for a variance. And so we have to assume that when she bought it, she knew that, and the fact that she lived in it as a single-family house for a number of years suggests that that was the intent. I mean, how else can you establish intent except by a person's actions and their words? And that's what she did. So how can we infer anything else? Actually, it would be my question. It was not a duplex when they bought it. And as far as the 7 bedrooms, this is a 3,200 square foot house. You know, I think anyone looking at this house can figure out that you know, that there can be a little bit of reconfiguration of the bedrooms, and it would be a wonderful 4-bedroom house like mine. It's about the same size as my house.
I think, you know, one of the points he was making too, you know, there are 2 kitchens. It has obviously been set up as a duplex and is to have 2 separate living units. And they accommodated a single family by, you know, cutting openings so that you could pass inside the house.
May I?
Sure.
Yes, it apparently does. I'm not challenging Mr. Moss's statements, but it was bought by the Moss family in that condition. And if we want to argue, if he wants to argue hardship, it's a hardship that was brought on by the buyer. And under the law, that is not sufficient hardship to grant a variance. They bought it in that condition. They bought it subject to this zoning and subject to the use of it as a single-family dwelling. It just does not satisfy. I mean, the condition of the property is what it is, but they bought it that way, and they bought it as it was single-family when they bought it. So really, what we have is just someone who wants to turn a single-family dwelling into a duplex. That is just simply not sufficient under the law.
It appears to me that they bought a duplex, that they just, you know, you cut a couple of doorways and allowed it to be used as a single family. Mr. Moss.
I'm sure that all these people have the right to do. My family didn't buy the house. It's been handed down from generation to generation. My mother did not buy the house. Okay. It was handed down. And I'm not trying here to disrupt the neighborhood at all. We have preserved the house. We kept it as in good a condition as possible, with my mother wanting to. I've built a lot of stuff in this area and some really nice stuff. So I'm not here trying to. I am, by the way, I am a licensed real estate broker, and I did lower the price on it. I'm a licensed electrician, licensed plumber, and licensed heat and air contractor by the state of Oklahoma. I do this all the time. I build stuff all the time, and when I tell you it can't be taken out, it can't be taken out. If I could have taken the wall out, I would have taken it out and sold the house. It can't be taken out.
Because it was more marketable as a single family than as a duplex.
Absolutely.
So those of us that watch this old house and, you know, are under the impression that almost anything we want to do can be done, doesn't necessarily hold true.
Well, anything can be done with enough money, but pretty soon it becomes where it's economically not feasible to do that.
And that's my impression, is that, you know, it probably could be done, but it is a major, it's almost a full
It'd be
interior
easier to push
demolition.
the house to the ground and start over.
So
Because it
balance
has
the
a
concerns of the
basement
neighborhood.
also.
The neighborhood, you know, is you know, would like to minimize multifamily. They don't want multifamily. They would like not to have rental property in the neighborhood. They appreciate the stability and the historic status.
Absolutely.
How do we reconcile this issue so that, because you've got a house that it sounds to me like your family would like to dispose of if they can find a way to do it.
Absolutely. My mother is finally to the point that she is, because it's been handed down from generation to generation, she's finally to the point that at her age she's willing to do something with it. It's only happened in the last couple of years, and the reason it lost its status is because we quit using one of the electric meters after a period of time, and that's the only reason it lost its status as far as the non-conforming. It does still have a riser for 2 gas meters. It still has, there is a meter base on the back of it, but we can't get an electric meter because it only had 1 meter in it for a period of time. We do not have a problem putting in another driveway to make the other side have a parking for the residents. The house, half of it I get, and I'm not, this is what I do. I have over 200 rental properties in the city of Oklahoma City. I have commercial property, I have apartments, I have a little bit of everything. Just half of this, I get $900 a month out of just half of it. So I'm not giving it away for $300 to the first person to come down the street. I was very, very picky about who I rented it to because of, number one is the house belongs to my mother, and number two is my family's been in this neighborhood for years, and it's not my intention to go into a neighborhood and cause an uprising because it don't benefit anybody at all to cause turmoil in a neighborhood. But the other side will be commanding approximately the same amount, $900 a month. So with commanding that kind of rent, you're not going to get your normal people that don't really care.
You know, I drove past the house and go ahead.
This is a kind of curiosity to me because I keep bantering back and forth as to whether or not this is single family or duplex. And now you've asserted that your family's owned it for generations. Is that what you said?
Yes.
You said generations?
Yes.
And it's been used as a single family house for generations?
No, sir. It was used as...
Can you give us a history on how this house has been used?
As much as I can. My uncle used to own the house. He was the district attorney here in Oklahoma City. He owned the house, and he rented half of it out at one time. And then when the tenants moved out, he left it empty for a while and then re-rented it. And then after his passing, it was handed down to his wife. And his wife, after his wife's passing, it was handed down to my family. And and my family lived in it for a period of time until my dad passed away. And because there's so many stairs in the house, because even to go from one side to the other, you have to go up and down 4 stairs. I moved my mother out of it because of her health was just not capable of. I moved her into a single-story house, and and it's been sitting vacant since he passed away, with the exception of a short period of time that I lived in it. It's been sitting vacant 10 to 12 years. And we don't wish to leave it vacant for 10 to 12 years because we're just very blessed to have some really good neighbors that are watching it, making sure that it don't get vandalized. And when they sit vacant like that, they deteriorate. And so, because it was kind of a white elephant, if you would, because it's a single family, but it's not a single family, and it's got doorways cut through, so everybody that comes to look at it says, wow, yeah. And then they get to running numbers on it, trying to take out that load-bearing wall, and they say, well, maybe we'll put it back into a duplex.
And it appears that your mother was moved down to Southwest 41st in 2003?
Yes.
It appears. Okay. So the house has been vacant for a substantial portion of the time since then?
Well, she actually lived in the house. My dad passed away in 2001. I moved her out of that house, I'm going to say 2002. She probably filed homestead in maybe in 2003, maybe down the south side. And then a short period of time in 2005, I believe, I lived there for approximately 6 months while I was transitioning from Edmond down here. But like I say, I'm not trying to disrupt the neighborhood at all. JJ's familiar with. I've built quite a few properties around in that area, and they're extremely nice properties that because there wasn't, But anyway.
And I think in your defense, I drove past the house and, it was decorated for Christmas and it appears to be well maintained. If I didn't know any different, I would just assume that somebody lived there and that the house was being maintained and,
Yeah, we're not trying to let it run down, but it's also just sitting there. And every day a house that's empty, it just...
Did you say that there were other duplexes in the preservation, the Putnam Heights preservation area?
Up until the last, and I think even the chairman, I'm sorry, I don't even know what his name is. Up until in the last year, I believe it was, or maybe a year and a half, I'm not sure. Okay.
How many?
There's just 2 others that were historically.
Mr. Case, we're going to have to invite you to the microphone if you want to address the board.
In the neighborhood, there were 3, counting his, historically duplexes, and one of them has been a single-family dwelling for several years because one of our neighbors, her daughter lived in the house. It's been there for a long time. And then the other family was a duplex, the guy that lived in it until I think he lease purchased the house out for about 2 years, and then the sale fell through, and the family that was living in it was a single-family dwelling, and the person that bought it now about a little over a year ago, they definitely have stated this is a single-family dwelling, and we use it that way, we live in it this way, and that's the way it's going to be.
And so you're telling me that there's no duplexes in that preservation?
There is no duplexes in our neighborhood, no, sir. And also, one of the things he was stating that The only record we have to go on to is as of the insurance records in 1955, it was listed as a single-family dwelling. And so that's over 5 decades that it has been listed on the insurance records as a single-family dwelling.
Oh, I would say that, whether there are other duplexes in Putnam Heights, is insignificant. I think, I'm sure that there are other duplexes in other historic preservation neighborhoods. And as a homeowner myself, I understand the desire to keep your family, owner-occupied and single-family. I understand that. And I think, we could argue endlessly about whether this structure, we know that it was constructed as a duplex. We know from 1923 to 1948, it was a duplex. At that time, the area was rezoned single-family.
Yes.
For you as a neighborhood, whatever the decision of this board is today, he has the right to rent that house. And, some of the issues that I think you're concerned about are rental property, the number of people, congestion in the street, driveway, and things like that. And whether, the house is a duplex or a single family, those issues are present. I think what he's telling you is he is offering, I think, to work with you all as a neighborhood to look for a resolution on this home. His family is ready to dispose of the home.
Mm-hmm.
There are some limitations in terms of how it's constructed. Could it be gutted and restored to a single family? With enough money, it sounds like it could. He is saying that for him it was not feasible economically, and I think, what I hear him say is, we're struggling with a reasonable, appropriate disposition of the house or use of the house, at the same time being sensitive to the residents of Putnam Heights. So you tell me, where do we go from here?
Well, one of the things I would like to suggest, I don't know how you're going to vote. I don't know what's going to pass or decline. But since the historical planning, they passed on to you that, yes, he could do this. But one of the stipulations to me is historical. It's a historical district. And if anything, it should be brought to historical proportions as it was before. And on the plat, it shows 2 garages and it shows 2 driveways. So if this is going to be historically brought back to a duplex, I would like it put into your requirements that there be 2 garages and there be 2 driveways installed to make it historical to the neighborhood. However you vote it, if it is passed, I would like to have that put into your
order.
Yeah.
But your preference is that the home be a single-family residence.
Yes, it is. And now it has 1 garage, 1 driveway. If you're going to make it a duplex, and like based on the historical planning committee that we came to before and passed it on to you, yes, it can be done. And I stated to them that if you're going to make it historically correct to bring back to a duplex, I think historically correct should be with 2 garages and 2 driveways.
Thank you, sir. Suzanne is asked to speak again.
Well, we're concentrating a bit on economic hardship, which in and of itself is not sufficient to meet these 4 requirements.
I haven't heard him plead economic hardship.
Well, he's saying he can't sell the house, and it costs a lot of money to put it in some kind of condition where someone would want to buy it. So I took that as making an argument for economic hardship. Maybe I misunderstood. But my point is that I haven't heard these 4 conditions actually addressed, except in my protest letter, and they just aren't negotiable, actually. They have to be met, and this board really, the statute says you gain your authority to give a variance based on those 4 conditions. As far as the cost to make the house marketable, well, knowing that the house was not even purchased, that it was inherited, actually takes away from any kind of economic hardship argument that there might be anyway, because it could be sold for any amount of money, and it's actually a gain for the owner now. And they can face it in 2 ways, just like I'll have to face it when I sell my house. Either I put it in good condition and get a good market value for it, or if it's not in good condition, or a condition that a buyer wants to pay top dollar for, then I'm going to sell it for less. The house can be sold. It's just a matter of selling it for the right price. But I just want us to concentrate on the big picture here, and the fact that has not been able to sell it is not dispositive in my opinion. Thank you.
I'm not quite satisfied that A and C are fully fulfilled here yet. I think B and D are fully fulfilled, but not A and C. It is a R1 zone property amongst other R1 zone properties. In zoning, proper zoning, they do have duplexes within areas of residential zoning, but typically as a buffer as opposed to being smack dab in the middle of them. If this house was two lots to the east of it, I'd probably vote in favor of the applicant right now, because they are typically in a buffer area, but this one is right in the middle of it and has lost its right to be a duplex by virtue of being vacant for so long. So far, I don't think they've been fulfilled. No other comments? Any comments? Okay. I'll just get it going and then make a motion, I guess. Make a motion to deny the application.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to deny the application.
We have a motion and a second to deny the application. Register your vote. You are denied.
Next item is case number 13027, review of variance of the Humphreys Companies to the hard surface paving requirement located at 215 South Walker Avenue.
Mr. Box.
I talked to Kirk Humphreys earlier, and he asked that I appear and at least give the board an update. I appeared when this was approved, and at that time there was a real question about whether the parking would hold up, whether it was appropriate, what negative implications would take place. From their standpoint, they're being Kirk and Grant Humphreys, this has been an excellent parking lot. It has done what it was supposed to. I know we had a 3-year time period so the board could look at it and determine whether they thought it was a good idea. What transpired 3 years ago, and I know there's been a couple others that have been approved in and around the downtown area, but this has worked very effectively cost-wise. I mean, the cost it's not a product of wanting to do something more inexpensive, because the cost is just about as much as at the time as it would have been to put an asphalt parking lot in. But they thought from a green standpoint this would be appropriate, and so he wanted me to pass that along to the board. I don't know what the staff...
I've been studying this quite a bit recently because of increased interest in environmental issues and drainage and that type of thing, and I've been looking into a number of different applications. This was not constructed with the current standards for ADA compliance, that kind of thing, but that wasn't required at the time the way it's installed anyway. But it was installed very well, and it's held up very well. But they have the new installation now of grass. Well, one of the brand names is Grass Pave and Gravel Pave, and they have a matting that goes underneath them, and they actually can qualify for ADA status, and they're being used across the country now in various applications. And I think it's a wave of the future. I know Edmund's been trying to back off on parking requirements up there just to keep from having huge parking lots out there that just run water off, you know. And so I'm a big proponent of some type of a change in the ordinance anyway with regards to trying to add properly installed parking lots of this nature throughout the metro area.
Yeah, and they would agree with that. In fact, you know, this was a variance where they had to go, you know, apply for, come up with the engineering standards and all that. If there were standards that the city felt comfortable with, it'd be nice to encourage it and not require some of the filing fees and require applicants to get lawyers and those kind of things, and come up with a standard, as you said, Mr. Baker, that they're doing around the country, and therefore we'd have this as an option. So, thank you. And I think the matter before us is there's no action other than to review this, and I understand from the city that it's been a very acceptable service or surface, and to just at this time review it satisfactorily, and that there be no further action required. Would entertain a motion to dismiss.
So move. Second.
We are dismissed.